Hi everyone, so today I'm working on the RZR 170. We're going to be in the garage here. What we ended up doing is buying a Dr. Pulley's Hit Clutch and the Variator set with the Variator weights and a stiffer spring. Uh, we ended up deciding on going with a 14 gram weights instead of the factory 17 grams. I guess it gives it a little bit higher RPM, which will kind of help you out in some of the areas that you're riding. So I'll kind of go over disassembly, install, and reassembly. Should be fairly easy. Shouldn't be bad at all. So check it out. Okay, so this is the RZR we're going to be working on. We've had it for about 4 years now. We've done quite a bit of work. It's got suspension work done, aftermarket exhaust, doors, cage. Essentially, they're going to be all the same except for this. This is typically the factory intake for the engine. We actually modified that and changed that, made that the CVT intake. Our engine intake is here now. I'll start off by unstrapping the seats, and next we have down here under the seat there's going to be two bolts, two nuts. So start off by removing those, and I'll get these seats pulled out. Okay, so now that I've removed the bolts from underneath, this seat here, passenger seat, it's got this little hooks on there. You essentially have to lift up on the seat and pull it out. This seat here is on a slider, so I pulled the two bolts out already, but there is two additional bolts right here that you gotta get to it from down below. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna slide the seat without sliders, and then we'll work on removing the two bolts from underneath. Okay, so I removed them. Sliders or tracks are still in place. I have to remove the two bolts, which are gonna be 12 millimeter from down below. And then we have approximately, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it's 5, 6 number 10 millimeter, or 6 10 millimeters, and then we have actually that's it. So 6 10 millimeters to remove from here. This should actually stay in place. I don't believe we'll have to remove that, which is great. And so I'll get that, and then these got to get unclipped, and this guy here, the cap comes off, and there's a 10 millimeter down there. So pay special attention to the way your lever is, right? So this would go forward. Okay, so I am under the machine now, and when you look at the machine, you see one bolt right here, and the other bolt is going to be right about there. So I'm just going to use my impact with an extension bit in a 12 millimeter, and then we'll get them out. Should be no problem. And the second one, I'm not sure if I'm in the right spot where you can see. Okay, so I'll get these, keep them by the tire, right there. Open this door. There we go. So now I'm going to change. I guess I can pull these out now. Maybe not. It's touching there, so I'll work on getting that plastic cover off. Didn't miss this guy here. This is a clip. We're going to pull out. should come out. Oh no, actually I'm missing another clip here. And another bolt right here. So let me get those out. I'm gonna have to remove this guy to get to that bolt, but it shouldn't be a big deal. Okay, so keep in mind, you're not gonna have this here. This is a fuse or a disconnect that we installed for this light bar here. It's a 30-inch light bar. And you would have your seat belts here also, but since we did the harnesses, the seat belts are not there. I just capped them off, so you would have one on each end. So you just have to just work it around the seat belt. Should be able to pull it out. And now you exposed the cover for the CVT. So this is your CVT intake. Outtake or exhaust. Basically what we'll do is grab some Phillips, loosen these up. It should be no problem getting them out of the way, but next thing we need to work on is removing this setup here. So what we're gonna do with this guy here, I do have to remove the seat belts. It's a 17 millimeter, I believe. I'll confirm on that. I gotta remove this guy. These can pull off, and essentially once we get all this loosened up, we're just gonna pull it up and just swing it out of the way. There'll be a cross brace that is held with a 14 millimeter bolt, which is one right here, one on that end over there, but we'll get to that. As far as removing this here, 10 millimeter here, gonna get rid of this, 17 millimeter, the two seat belts, and then we have 10 millimeters here, 2, 3, 4, and then this pin right here. So let me work on those, and we'll move over to the next step. Okay, so as far as this shifter, essentially you pull the bolt out and this just slides right up, right? You don't have to unscrew, pull it right out. You have a plastic clip here, 10 millimeter here, so 2 10 millimeters, 3 10 millimeters. Yes, YouTube video. 4 10 millimeters. Another plastic clip here. Yeah, plastic clip. As far as removing these clips here, I know that they do sell tools for that. I just use this guy here. I've had this. It's a Great Neck from AutoZone. I've had it for a long time, but essentially I just kind of work it in there, prop it up, it pulls that up, and then from there I stick it up underneath and I pull it up. Second one, and that makes it easy for me. I can just grab it and pull it out. Okay, so I got everything pulled out. Have the 4 10 millimeter screws across the front. We have 1, 2, 3 plastic clips. We removed the 2 seat belts, right? And then I had this here. Obviously you won't have this. Now as far as the wiring here, you shouldn't have to mess with it. When you look at this, it's tucked underneath this plastic. So what you gotta do is essentially just lift it from the middle. When you lift it from the middle, it'll pull it out, right? Now you have it tucked in on this end, pull it to the side, pull it away. Now you could actually lift. Now you can actually lift it and get it out of the way, right? That's all you need. Just get it out of the way like that. Next thing we need to do, 14 millimeter bolt here, another 14 millimeter bolt here. That's better than the plastic, but and that'll take this bracing out, and you'll be able to access all this. So I'm gonna take those bolts off, pull this bar off, and then I'm gonna loosen up these here and pull them apart. Just pretty much have that ready. These here are 5/16 screws, and I will use my impact, and I'll show you what it is that I use and do for that. Okay, so I removed the cross bracing here. I pulled this guy out, and I did leave this one in. What I found it to be easy for me is if I loosen up the strap enough to slide it out of the way. I'll show you here. So I just loosened it up a little bit more to slide it over the plastic. Then I can get this plastic, push it, and it pops right out. So now it's out. Okay, so as far as this guy here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I believe there's 8, 4 on top and 4 on the bottom. You will need a swivel. If I'm not mistaken, you'll need a swivel for one that's down here and somewhere down here in this corner. And then from there, we should be able to get that off. So let me get the tools I need, and I'll show you what I got going on. Okay, so I got it pulled out. There's a total of 8 screws, 4 on top, 4 on bottom. Keep in mind, you do have a gasket here, so you do have to be careful. If it is tight, I recommend getting a razor knife. As you're splitting it, figure out which side the gasket is, and just track the opposite side. You know, figure out which side. If the gasket's stuck to this piece here, then start cutting into the other edge, so you can help. If it's glue, help it separate. So I have this opened up now, so I will show you what tools I ended up using to unscrew and making it easy for me. So for the 4 top, I just had this screwed on. So I just hooked up the 10mm with an adapter, backed it up in reverse. To be able to capture the 4 bottom, I did this. I was able to work from the top. I was able to work like this. Find out where the screw is and screw it down. Now for this last corner one, there is one that goes right in this area underneath here. All I did was I added this guy in there. Added swivel. Easy, I got it. I took it out. Not even 5 minutes, I did it very quickly. Okay, so finding out, it looks like the gasket needs to be on the engine part, due to the fact that right in here where the belt is, this is it basically slides down behind the belt, and you can see I did tear it a little bit, but just be careful with it. This is still gonna be fine. I'm gonna reuse it, and so now I'm just gonna work on getting this off. For this here, I gotta slide it up in between here. Once I get it off, I'll show you how I set it up to be able to pull it off easily. So there's a little bit of a trick to it. Since it is so tight here, but I'll show you and we'll go from there. Okay guys, so I do have it. Started sliding it out. It is a little tough to record when you need both your hands, so I've been having to pause this quite a bit. Anyhow, so this is ready to be pulled out, so I'll pull it out and then I'll kind of show you what I got going on in there. Okay, so I removed the cover. I ended up using a impact. It's got a 17mm socket. Backed it off, nut, washer, the fan blade, 17mm here. So now, as far as this guy here, I can pull the belt off, right? I can pull this guy off. Now I can pull this guy off. Right. Now I'm all clear. Now let's go look at the other parts. Okay, so here's the clutch here. Essentially, we have this nut here. I loosened it up already. It does have a spring tension behind there, so be careful. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you how to do it, but I can't do it with two hands. They do sell spring tensioner, you know, pulleys that kind of hold it in place, but I'm just going to do this. Pull the nut off, and then the spring will pop out. Okay, so here we are. Wasn't too bad at all. I mean, it's not a whole lot of tension, but more tension than being able to do it with one hand and record. So we got this guy, spring. So we do have the replacement spring. And when you look at this, certain edges, the clutch has to go a certain way. So if you try to drop it in anyway, it won't fit. Gotta make sure it blends in and locks in. Okay, so here's the parts we're going to be installing. This is the hit clutch here. It's got dual springs, some here and some in the back. It does have additional springs for tuning. I think we're just going to leave it at the 1500 RPM. This is the variator here. That's a factory one. Not sure when you look at this, kind of sits in here. It only goes a certain way, so when you're putting that clutch in, the new one, you gotta make sure you guide it in the right way. I did want to point out that on the factory variator, it's a 90.1 millimeters. This kit does not come with rollers, so you have to buy them. Just keep that in mind. The aftermarket one is the same, right? The factory outer one is 90.1. When we go to the new one, we have to open it. Let's measure this guy. Do these numbers again. My little cheap scale wasn't working too well, but I think now I got it aligned. So we are. And it is difficult to do it with one hand. So 114.1. Well, 14.2 is practically the same number. This guy's a little easier. Right? 0.7. Look at the difference on this. .108. So with that, that should be able, as you apply force and speed RPMs, it'll let the belt get taller, which will give you more speed. Okay, so I was able to get the spring in right there. Put the lock nut back in. There is this that goes in between the lock nut and the clutch, and basically what I end up doing to be able to get the lock nut started, I put my knee, one hand down, apply pressure, got the thread started, and came in with these, locked them in. From factory, there is I guess like a marker they put in place, so locked it to that. So now I gotta get these and fold them over. It's like an extra lock. As far as bending these tabs over, I essentially grabbed this guy, propped him up, and I came back with my channel locks, and I essentially just did this. Now I'm gonna get the back side of the channel locks and just tap it in place. Sorry guys, I know it's a little. It's a little difficult to record and hammer them in place. Anyhow, you get the idea. I'll go around and do the whole thing. Some of them are falling on the actual tip here, so they don't go down all the way. Well, they do go down all the way, but they're just on the pointing part of the. So, okay, I'll continue on. Okay, so I've essentially just kind of put the clutch in there. And I did put the variator in there just to try it out. So now, looking at this, the variator is rubbing on the gasket. So what do we use? Sharpie, trace around it. Pair of scissors, cut around it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that step there. And then we'll continue on. So there you see the tracing. So I'll get the scissors now and trim it around. Okay, so looking at these parts, these sleeves are guides. They go in here, then they go in the shaft. When I noticed on this kit here that I bought, the sleeves are exactly the same. The sleeves are exactly the same height. However, you can look at the diameter of that right away, the difference. So what I ended up, let's see here. This guy, 16.4. This guy, 14.5. So essentially what I did, I just used the original factory one on this guy. So when I was testing it on the actual razor right now to cut the gasket to trim it, that's what I did. Essentially brought it see now it fits right in. Be careful when you're trimming this here. It gets pretty thin right around here. And then you do have a guide here and a guide here. So make sure you don't lose those, they pull right out. The other difference on these two was a hole here. here and here. This is the factory one. This one's a little larger. And essentially, this guy was the same dimension as this guy here. So what I do, I could use this one here, but since I want to run the Dr. Pulley's, since it is shaped slightly different, I just got to step up a bit and increased it. So you may be able to find a kit that fits perfect on there. Maybe so. But this is what I'm using, and I'm just kind of modifying it a little bit to make it fit. So I want to run Dr. Pulley's. I know there is some other clutches out there that are set up for RZR 170s. I don't know if they come with the right size on this and this. I'm assuming they do, or if you have to modify them. But this is what I'm doing. It's gonna work. Okay, so the next step is dropping in the weights, right? These only go a specific way, so you have to know which way you're dropping them. One good way to identify is looking at the angle here, so that'll tell you, right? Other way would be to add the logo to your left side. Right. After that, we drop in this guy, and we are ready to drop into the useful. So now keep in mind, when you are drilling out this hole, take your time. Don't rush through it. You don't want to make it too large. You want to make it to where it literally is the same dimensions of the actual shaft. So if it's a slightly larger, it's not going to make too much of a difference because it is being controlled by these guides here. And the last one would be this guy. Well, this is the real way. It's kind of keep it perfectly centered. So let's take this back over. And we're set up. Now, I can get this belt. The belt, you can cinch this in to open it up so you can get the belt in there. If it's too tight, see, look, and it won't be, it's too tight on there. So let me do that. I need 2 hands. Okay, so I actually didn't need to spread this. Once I used my 2 hands, I was able to slide it right over the top, and now it's sitting flush. The next thing is to apply the fan, nut and washer. I did put a nut on there. It's just on there by hand. It's not locked in. Okay, so there you have it. So now, just get this guy here. Alright. And over here as well. It's hard to deal with. Okay, so one of the things I didn't notice after I assembled this, I noticed this pulley needs to spin freely, and when I applied that lock behind, it was rubbing on here. So what I ended up having to do, I just ended up backing them off, flatten them out, and now it's just
back behind there. The nut itself is torqued down to where the factory mark was, so you know, it's plenty tight. It's not going to come off. I guess in the step that you're doing, if you want to just keep that locking ring off, you can. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So yeah, so I didn't want to pull the spring off and pull that piece out and go through all that, so I just ended up flattening them out. Okay. What I'll do now, I'm going to start it. That way you can see the way the CVT operates. I don't have the exhaust in here, so it's going to be a little loud. Yeah, so that's essentially it right there. You see us, it's traveling up way higher than the other one did. So yeah, we should get some better results out of this one. Okay, cover again. I slid it in through here, underneath here, and it's just literally resting there. So I should be able to just push down on it. Should drop in place. See? You do have a guide here, and then you do have another guide back here. So just keep an eye on that. And there it is. So now getting your 8 bolts back on. So I'm going to go ahead and work on getting my 8 bolts back on and getting these tubes in. I'm going to go ahead and get them in, tighten them down, and we'll go back to the next step. Okay, so I got the back piece on. Just so you know, you got 4 screws across the top. You do have one of those plastic one of those little plastic guys. I'm forgetting the names, but so you have 4 across there, 1 across the top. You have 3 number 10 millimeters down here, and then you have this guy here, one last guy here. It's a little tough. This guy's being a little difficult. Where is it? I'm sorry, guys. I know it's very difficult to record. Okay, so then we have 4 screws across the front here. You have that guy there, plastic insert. The shifter. The next thing I'm going to do is resecuring this little breaker deal, applying the seat belts, and then securing these 4 number 12 nuts for the seat belt or the seat sliders. Okay, so the purpose of this little modification is to essentially give the primary the belt on the primary side to be able to actually get to a taller position. Therefore, it should, as it gets to a taller position, it tightens up down on the secondary, which is the transmission side. It gets to a smaller spot, right? So primary expands larger, so the rotation on it, you get one rotation is more travel on the belt. Secondary, it shrinks, therefore it spins quicker. There, in theory, it should give the transmission a little bit more speed to get a few extra miles per hour. So these things aren't very fast to begin with. They're about, I think they go 30 to 35 maybe miles per hour. They should give us some additional RPMs. Keep in mind, you do something like that. As far as your bottom end, it should help you out with adding that additional spring, that 1,500-pound yellow spring. So it shouldn't really affect you much on the bottom end. But once you start going larger tires, and then you need to adjust your sprocket ratio, and which we've already done. We've done a big bore kit on it as well to give it a little bit more extra power. So, well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully it was informational to you, and it will help you get this process done, in a timely manner, and